When Europeans arrived in the Americas centuries ago, they brought more than just themselves, their weapons, and their greed for new land to colonize. They also brought their religion, and they pushed it upon the natives hard. In July 2016, archaeologists discovered 16th century Christian symbols deep inside a cave on the remote Caribbean island of Mona. They think the markings are connected to the work of early European evangelists. The cave is large, stretching over half a mile from the entrance to the deepest point. And it also contains over 250 markings, including fingerprints. Further along, though, there are crosses and Christian phrases written in both Spanish and Latin. There are 30 such markings, often appearing in close proximity to the native paintings. The phrases are short and simple, including such observations as, "God made many things," and "May God forgive you." Rather than being made by the evangelists themselves, the archaeologists think that they're examples of native people writing things they've been taught. The cave, therefore, becomes a record of the very beginning of Christianity in this part of the world.
Christians be marking on the walls?
The markings on the stones of Clava Cairns in Inverness, Scotland, probably tell a story. It's just a shame that we have no idea what the story is. The cairns are formed from two ancient burial sites that overlap each other, but weren't built at the same time. The older of the two is about 4,000 years old, whereas its companion is closer to 3,000.
I need a 4,000 year
The
old
old and new sites meet in the middle, where we find three huge circular burial chambers and their entrance passages marked with standing stones. It's on these stones that the markings appear. They're a complicated set of ring and cup marks arranged in such a way that experts think they're likely to be an attempt at communication. Unfortunately, it's so far proved to be impossible to interpret or translate them. We're not even sure who's trying to communicate with us. It's possible that Clava Cairns is a Pictish site, but we know so little about the Picts that it would be irresponsible to state such a thing as a fact. We're leaving Scotland and going all the way to China now, where we find the West Xia Imperial tombs in Yinchuan. Archaeologists weren't allowed to commence excavation work at the site of the tombs until 1972. But it's such an enormous job that the project is still ongoing today. However, the modern archaeologists working at the site are increasingly convinced that the beehive-shaped tombs are the last remaining trace of a lost kingdom. The uniquely shaped tombs are dotted all over the valleys in this area. There are almost 300 of them in total, but all but 9 are relatively small and insignificant. The remaining 9, on the other hand, are colossal mausoleums thought to have been built for the elite imperial rulers of the Western Xi dynasty. The dynasty controlled this part of China from the early 11th century until 1227, when they were overrun and conquered by Genghis Khan's Mongols. Khan's armies tended to follow a scorched earth policy, so it's a small miracle that the tombs were left behind for us to study at all. There's enormous controversy about our next discovery, which is an ancient tomb that was found in Antalya, Turkey in 2017. At first, the stunning rock tomb was identified as a 2,400-year-old relic of the Lycian era. That alone would make it a valuable discovery. But a more shocking theory has appeared since then. A scientist claims to have carbon dated some of the artifacts within the tomb and claims that it's closer to 12,000 years old. The question of age isn't the only controversy here. The cartouche of Egyptian Queen Nefertiti has been found all over the tomb's interior surfaces. Did Nefertiti ever visit this part of the world? If not, why is she named on the walls of this tomb? Even the structure of the tomb is a puzzle. The lower part takes the shape of a ship's bow, whereas the upper half looks more like a house. The entire structure is carved directly into bedrock, which must have been a painstaking process. It's almost as if the entire site is a practical joke designed to perplex and frustrate archaeologists.
Yeah, because that's what they had in mind.
Modern China is a powerhouse of global production. That's why the label Made in China appears in so many places. From the clothes you wear to the objects you have in your home. It even appears on some of the contents of this 800-year-old shipwreck, which was rediscovered off the coast of India. Language has helped archaeologists uncover the history of the wreck, which is all rotted away centuries ago, leaving only the ceramics and luxury goods that it once carried strewn across the seabed. It's the wording of the label that's helped experts to date the ceramics. It refers to the Chinese government district of Jianingfu. The area's name was changed to Jianinglu after the invasion of the Mongols in 1278, meaning the ceramics can have been made later than that year. Other goods lost in the wreck include elephant tusks and containers full of sweet-smelling resin. This would have been an extremely expensive loss for somebody when it happened. It's reasonably common for modern-day marriages to be accompanied by a prenuptial agreement, thus agreeing on the terms of any later divorce and avoiding expensive and stressful legal wrangling further down the line. Some people think that prenups take all the romance out of marriage, but they're not a new idea. In fact, here's one from 4,000 years ago, and it contains some very specific get-out clauses. The contract takes the form of a clay Assyrian tablet and concerns the marriage of a man named Lachapham and his bride-to-be, Hatala. What surprised historians the most about it is that it contains an agreement that the couple will have a surrogate child if they're unable to conceive naturally within 2 years. That might sound civilized, but the wording goes on to state that the child would be conceived with a slave purchased at Hatala's expense.
Are you sure?
In the event that the marriage was to end in divorce, the party initiating the divorce agreed to pay the other 5 minas of silver, with the mina being an ancient unit of weight. The fact that the balance of payment was so equitable suggests that gender relations may have been better back then than they became in subsequent centuries.
Does that mean there's 2 hours left for
The
this to open?
Zoroastrian Towers of Silence sound like the sort of place you might come across in a science fiction or fantasy movie. But they're a real place in Yazd, Iran, and a place with a somewhat ghoulish history. This is where the ancient inhabitants of Iran placed their dead for decontamination before moving them to their tombs. By decontamination, we mean they literally left them up here until all the flesh had rotted away. The tradition goes back at least 3,000 years and dictates that bodies should be arranged in concentric circles with men on the outside, women in the middle, and the remains of children at the center. By leaving the remains up here until the bones were bleached, the Zoroastrians believed that they were preventing contamination by demons. The demons apparently couldn't reach the top of the towers. Amazingly, the towers were still in use as recently as the 1970s, after which it became illegal to dump bodies on them. Some Zoroastrians still follow the old principles though, so it's not uncommon to see bodies on hilltops in rural areas. Every piece of guitar music you've ever heard in your life might owe its existence to this artifact, which was found inside the High Pasture Cave on the Isle of Skye, Scotland in 2012. It's a piece of carved wood that contains carved notches for strings. This identifies it as the Bridge of a Lyre, and the oldest lyre ever found in Europe. Archaeologists believe it to be somewhere between 2,400 and 2,500 years old. The lyre is the first known stringed instrument and should therefore be considered the ancient ancestor of the guitar. Several small fragments of antlers and bones were found close to the lyre fragment and may have been used as tuning pegs. Wooden artifacts such as this one usually rot away before archaeologists can find them. But conditions deep inside the Scottish cave did an excellent job of preserving them. As impressed as experts are with its age, they still think it's likely that lyres were made long before this, perhaps even centuries earlier. If only we knew the songs that were once played on this one. In times gone by, humans have tried to make clothes out of almost every material imaginable. Reeds were once the default choice in some parts of the world, as is evidenced by the January 2010 discovery of this fragment of a reed skirt. It was found during a planned archaeological expedition into the cave known as Arini I in Armenia. The skirt might not be the most sophisticated or stylish item in the world, but we should make allowances for its age. The archaeologists responsible for the find say that it's 5,900 years old. When you take that into account, its state of preservation is remarkable. It's even retained traces of its original colors. This scrap of fabric holds the distinction of being both the only garment of its kind discovered in Armenia and the oldest reed clothing in the world. The world's oldest shoe was also found in the cave a few months before the skirt fragment, but archaeologists have not yet been able to prove that the two discoveries are related. About 13,700 years ago, a tribe of Magdalenian hunter-gatherers took shelter in a Spanish cave. While they were there, they etched some markings into the cave wall. After studying the markings since 2009, archaeologists now believe that these markings represent the oldest map in Western Europe. A team of experts from the University of Zaragoza have interpreted the etchings as peaks, rivers, scrublands, and ponds. There also appear to be a few representations of animals included, perhaps as examples of what could be hunted in each area. It might be a plan for a coming hunt or even the story of a hunt that happened in the past, but including a visual guide to the area the hunt happened in would still make it a map. The alleged map is inside the legendary cave of Abans la Missoula, which is already notorious because it's said by local folklore to be the home of bird-footed nymphs. Legends aside, it was probably a strategically important place for ancient hunters because of the excellent view it provided of the canyons below. Travel a mile or two north of the charmingly named town of Chipping Norton in England, and you'll find the Woolwright Stones. This is actually three separate collections of limestone monuments, and they've been standing upright since the Neolithic era. Folklore and legend contain many stories about them, but the most popular is that these stones are actually the petrified remains of an ancient king and his knights who were turned to stone by a powerful witch. There are 77 stones in total included in the group known as the King's Men, arranged in a circular shape of around 100 feet in diameter. They're joined by the Whispering Knights and a solitary standing stone said to be the king himself. The truth behind the legend has been lost to time. The stones didn't end up this way by accident, but we don't know who arranged them in these formations or when. It's possible that they may once have been tombs or dolmens, although there are no human remains here now. The first mention of the witch legend is recorded in 15th century poetry, but the story is probably older. To add to the sense of mystery around the stones, it's said that it's impossible to count them accurately, and that they move by themselves at night. Since we're in England, we should also check out the Shell Grotto of Margate. This might not be as ancient a creation as some of the places and artifacts we've looked at in this video, but it's just as mysterious. The official version of the grotto's history is that it was discovered by accident when a farmer dug a little deeper into his land than he intended to in 1835. After smashing the grotto's roof, he jumped down through the hole and found himself standing inside a massive structure covering over 2,000 square feet, every inch of which is covered in shell mosaics. It's impossible to count how many shells there are inside the grotto, but it's at least 4 million. The shells have been tested and proven to come from the local area, but the style of the design takes elements from ancient Greece and the Middle East. Unfortunately, it hasn't been possible to perform carbon dating tests on the shells. The farmer offered guided tours of the grotto to the public long before he let archaeologists in. So by that time, everything had been contaminated by the gas lamps he installed on the walls so people could see in the dark.
Right.
Building something this large underground must have been a lifetime's work for someone. But who? And perhaps more importantly, why? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Isn't necessarily understanding. You can't always tell what an ancient artifact is or what it was used for just by looking at it. In some cases, you still can't tell what it is or what it was used for, even after an extended period of study. There's something a little mysterious about all the artifacts you're about to see in this video, so prepare to be puzzled. Some of the earliest works of art created by our ancient ancestors are representations of the world they saw around them. As an example, here's a 4,400-year-old wooden snake carving from Finland. The unusual artifact was discovered by archaeologists working at a site close to Järvensuo in the southwest of the country. The life-size snake, which is around 20 inches long, is a relic of the Neolithic Stone Age. Nothing like it has ever been found in the country before its discovery in June 2021. So archaeologists view it as a new insight into the ritual imagery and artistic expression of the people of the era. The Stone Age rock art of Northern Europe often depicts humans holding snake-shaped rocks, but this is the first example of such an artifact being discovered for real. The area would have been wetlands 4,000 years ago, and so snakes would have been a common sight for the people living nearby.
What kind of snake is that?
The significance of the snake as a symbol is unknown. It's likely that it could have been wielded like a staff, perhaps thought to have magical powers, and may have belonged to a shaman. If you were to go to a bar and ask for a pint of beer, you'd be served your beverage of choice in a glass that would probably look a lot like this. This isn't a humble pint glass, though. It is in fact the Warring States crystal glass of China, and it's over 2,200 years old.
Wow.
The stunning crystal artifact was found in a Warring States period mausoleum tomb in Hangzhou in 1990, and immediately caught the eye of archaeologists because of its close resemblance to a modern drinking vessel. You'd be a lot more upset if you dropped this glass than you would if you dropped a plate glass, though, because it's made from very high-quality natural crystal. It's considered so valuable that it's one of only 64 artifacts ever leaving China, not even for international exhibitions. The identity of the tomb's owner was never determined, which makes the history of the glass a little mysterious. No object like it from this era has ever been discovered, and we can't be certain of its purpose.
I wouldn't let it
It's
travel
tempting to
either.
dismiss it as a drinking vessel for someone of immense wealth, but why go to the trouble of making such a thing out of crystal? The words ancient curse rarely have positive implications, but curses weren't always written with negative intent in ancient times. Take the Pella Curse tablet, for example. Despite the scary name, archaeologists believe it's a so-called love curse written by a woman named Nagina, who wanted to make a man called Dionysiphon fall in love with her. It's written in the Doric Greek dialect on a lead scroll and is roughly 2,400 years old. The artifact was found in Pella, Macedonia in 1986. Aside from being a fascinating insight into the romantic lives of everyday people 2,400 years ago, the fact that it's written in Doric Greek indicates that the ancient Macedonian language was, in fact, a dialect of Northwestern Greek rather than a language in its own right. In writing the curse, Nagina was very specific about her wishes. She wanted Dionysiphon to marry her rather than a woman named Fatima, and also wanted to grow old along Dionysiphon, unless she returned to dig up the scroll and unroll it. It's interesting that even though she wanted to steal Dionysiphon away from another woman, she still wanted to give herself a get-out clause in case she changed her mind. In 2016, art experts and historians claim to have solved what was once described as the world's biggest small mystery. Their claim relates to a 500-year-old set of boxwood miniature carvings that have long confounded academics and scholars. The representations of heaven, hell, and life on earth carved in intricate detail on the artifacts are as confusing as they are impressive. They were the must-have item of their era. King Henry VIII of England carried one around everywhere, which led to them becoming seen as a status symbol. They appear to have been cherished for around 20 years, and then they disappear from history. There are no contemporary records of who made them or how. You can't even recreate them using modern methods.
Really?
Only 135 examples have survived to the present day. 30 of them were studied by the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art in
We can't even
2016,
replicate
revealing
that?
that each of the pieces was created by making a circular piece of boxwood, dissecting it, slicing it into thin discs, carving the discs, and then reassembling them so neatly that the seams are invisible. The wood comes from Belgium, and amazingly, all of the work on every piece appears to have been carried out by the same person. When that person died, nobody could take over the work, explaining their sudden disappearance. The Spirit Pond runestones are enormously controversial artifacts. If taken at face value, they appear to suggest that the Holy Grail was brought to North America in ancient times.
What?
That's precisely why so many archaeologists and historians write them off as a hoax. The stones were supposedly found by Walter J. Elliott near Spirit Pond in Phippsburg, Maine, USA in 1971. There are 3 stones in total, 2 covered in runic inscriptions and the third showing what appears to be a map. Elliott took the stones to Bath Maritime Museum, where they were identified as Norse runes by museum director Harold Brown. For the sake of balance, we should point out that Harvard professor of Scandinavian languages, Einar Hagen, also examined the stones and immediately dismissed them as fraudulent. More recently, though, a succession of reputable academics have warmed to the idea of them being genuinely Scandinavian in origin and perhaps connected to a Viking voyage across the sea in 1405. Forensic geologist Scott Walter claiming the stones tell the story of the Knights Templar fleeing persecution in Europe and bringing the Holy Grail with them.
What?
In this version of history, the Holy Grail is the living bloodline of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. Walter's theory is probably wrong, but maybe it's time someone gave us a definitive answer about the authenticity of the
You know what it was?
Talking about hard to decipher ancient stones, let's check out this 13,800-year-old
But he would still be here. What are you talking
It was
about?
found
People
at the
back.
archaeological
What
site
is
of
this weapon down for?
Spain in 2013.
This sword is
And
amazing.
if archaeologists are correct in their interpretation of it, it's a very primitive map. To be more specific, they think it shows the position of huts in a hunter-gatherer campsite. That would involve a greater degree of site planning than we usually associate with the hunter-gatherers of almost 14,000 years ago. The schist slab is engraved with 7 semicircle shapes, which have been interpreted as huts based on their shape and proportions. That might make this Paleolithic inscription the first representation of a human social group ever found in Europe. Quite why an ancient artist would want to make the inscription is unknown. It could be a simple case of a bored person idly sketching the campsite as it appeared to them
And
in that
3
particular
hits.
moment. Alternatively, it could be a plan for the ideal formation of camps and huts, which the tribe carried around with them from location to location. In either case, it implies that camps and huts stayed in one place for longer than most historians currently believe. The Middleham jewel was found by amateur metal detectorist Ted Seaton as he walked along a horse trail close to Middleham Castle, Yorkshire, England in 1985. It was a discovery that changed his life. The jewel is actually a gold pendant from the 15th century, and may once also have been a reliquary, so its internal cavity was empty save for a few scraps of fabric when it was found. The pendant is set with a blue sapphire and engraved on each side with religious scenes, including the crucifixion. Such is the elaborate nature of the piece that some historians feel it may have belonged to Anne Neville, the wife of Richard III. The blue of the sapphire, along with the presence of several female saints among the inscriptions, may suggest that the jewel was a gift given to assist with the process of childbirth. When Ted was granted permission to sell the jewel in 1986, he received £1.4 million for it, but that wasn't the end of the story. The British government refused permission for the jewel to be exported to its foreign buyer and raised further funds for the Yorkshire Museum to buy it instead, eventually acquiring it for £2.5 million.
That sucks.
Could this shattered vase help us to solve the mystery of what happened to the ancient Maya? Some historians believe so. This is the Kamkam vase, which was found in an ancient royal palace in Malaysia. It's elaborately decorated with hieroglyphs, many of which tell the story of a king of Kamkam, who apparently performed a frog-like dance after an important military victory. Archaeologists from Texas's Baylor University, which was responsible for the discovery, say the vase comes from the very early 9th century. Only about 60% of the vase has been found and put back together. The 9th century is of vital importance when trying to understand Maya history, because this was when their civilization began to collapse for unknown reasons. Among the partially translated tales told by the hieroglyphs on the vase is one of the Kamkam king leading a successful military raid on the Mayan territory of Oaxaca. Another tale talks of the leader of Tikal being sent into exile. From these short excerpts, it appears that the Mayan civilization collapsed not in one fell swoop.
I've been at that exact spot.
Surrounding territories, accompanied by the droughts and famines we were already aware of. We shouldn't read too much into 60% of just one civilization. But it's an emerald. So the seal of Solomon was thought to be enough. Second is drawn to the ancient kingdom. Israel, the artifact is said to have many magical powers, including the ability for its owner to speak to animals. The magical powers are obviously mythical, but in 2017 we found out that the artifact might be real. In late 2017, Turkish police arrested a suspected tomb raider and searched his property in Amasya province. There they found this ancient bronze seal. They also found a golden bull figurine, 5 solid gold tablets, and a bronze charm.
Wow.
But it's the seal that caused the most excitement. The Bible tells us that the name of God was engraved on Solomon's ring, allowing him to summon and control demons. Arabic legends say that Solomon received the ring from the heavens, but is less specific about its powers. If the seal really has such powers, the smuggler will presumably use them to fend off the police. Confirming that this ancient seal is the same one that's referenced in the Bible is likely to be impossible. But it's of the right age and the right design. The Turkish police are yet to report any breakthroughs in animal communication. The Mosaic of Rehob is historically significant for many reasons. Also known as both the Berea of the Boundaries and the Tower of Inscription, it features the longest text inscription of any mosaic in Israel. It is also the oldest known Talmudic text of any kind. It was found on the floor of the ancient synagogue in Tel Rahab in 1973 and is thought to be 1,700 years old. Unlike most mosaics of both the era and the area, it features no symmetrical designs and very little in the way of ornamentation. Instead, it contains a very long list of fruit and vegetables.
Like when I was a kid, our boat had one engine.
To tithing in 18 towns in the surrounding areas. It's not necessarily a fascinating thing to read, but it has helped historians to understand how Jewish laws of the time affected farmers and provided further detail about the historical geography of Palestine during the late Roman era. The text also delineates the boundaries of the land of Israel in what might be the first attempt to establish the country's legal status after the end of Babylonian captivity. You have to be a solicitor with a flair for ancient law to understand parts of it, but it's incredible to see it all laid out as a mosaic rather than a scroll or a manuscript. The only thing we know with any certainty about the Picts is that they lived in Scotland for over 1,000 years. Everything else is guesswork. They left very little in the way of monuments and had no written language. We don't even know the collective term they used to refer to them. We get the word Picts from the Romans. Because of the lack of direct evidence of their existence, archaeologists tend to jump excitedly into any Pictish relic they can find. Here's one that turned up in 2018. Archaeologists hard at work on the remote Scottish island of Rosyth in the Orkney Islands found this ancient stone anvil used by a Pictish metalsmith approximately 1,500 years ago. Thanks to a combination of heat, dirt, and bricks, this handprint is still visible on the soil. It's the only known Pictish handprint in existence, and feels like a personal connection with a civilization that's long gone. The imprints of his feet and knees have also been identified in the area around the stone.
That's funny.
Remarkably, his workshop was underground and would have been pitch black were it not for the light given off by the red-hot metals he worked with.
You're right.
That probably sounds dangerous, and it would have been. But it may also have helped him visually assess the temperature of the metals he worked with. The mythical figure known as Roland appears in the folklore and legends of several European nations. Aspects of the tale change from country to country, but he's most commonly said to have been a mighty medieval warrior.
Another one.
In France, he's said to have been the nephew of Charlemagne. That might even be true. A figure that historians believe might have been inspired by tales of Roland fought in the Battle of Roncesvalles Pass in 778. In every description of Roland, he carries his mighty sword, Durandal, with him. French legends say that he was given the sword by Charlemagne himself, who received it from an angel. The Italians say that Roland inherited the sword from Hector, the legendary hero of Troy. It's tempting to write the whole thing off as fiction, but there's the small matter of the sword that's embedded in the wall above the doorway of Chapelle de Notre Dame in Rocamadour, France.
Wow.
This weapon is definitely very old and is consistent with the design of 8th century blades. Could it be Durandal? We'll probably never know. The chapel guards the sword fiercely and has never allowed any testing to be carried out on.
Why didn't we pull it out?
Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.
Well, that's kind of stupid. Go to the right.
Are you even paying attention?
Right.
It's just making me sleepy.
Let's put something else on.
Yeah.
Hold on, I will take it out.
Then put it on.
Why? Are you gonna drink out of that can that has holes in it? You bent it. It doesn't have any holes in it. It's dripping out the...
Nah, I didn't pour it to the void. I did a dumb. I did a Haley.
Why don't you watch Big Time Rush?
What?
I was talking to Mom.
Yes, you're irritating me! do something with those eyebrows. They make them look fucking old as what? He wants to bone dodge, Haley. How have you missed that?
I don't know.
He just said if you're thinking doctor the whole time, that's okay, but so was I.
Pumpkins?
What, Hannah? I'm gonna punch you in the throat.
Who?
Let's tell you about Halloween with my daddy. He's cowering and all small guys selling portraits of their living daddies. I'm glad you're with me. I was wearing a long sleeve shirt and pink dress.
Halloween is normally cold.
Next Halloween.
What did he say?
I have no idea.
Halloween is normally cold. It is in October.
Living in the wrong
Era.
era.
Stop it.
That'd be like a 90s thing.
Oh, it's a wrong white dress? No,
Maybe she is 90. If she's 80, she's good.
Someone was doing it. I wouldn't.
Would you want?
There, all my stats are maxed. Hey, Wyatt, do you know how to get more stats? Because I just maxed them out with the experience thing right here. How do you... Oh! After you max them all out, you're able to make them go further by one. With what? What is that? Oh, you need materials.
I said I played it before.
You can do bag too? What is it, Daddy?
What?
What?
Never heard of that type of material.
How does that balloon even work? It has barbed wire on it.
Can you kiss my boo-boo?
Last Halloween massacre. Damn later.
No!
Your fans will fight it.
Tag. Leave me alone.
Ah, the online mode.
Leave me
Put
alone.
her outside. Or you go outside too.
Wow, that's good.
Let me jump straight into the details. You'll be able to access other waiting rooms when using the destination. So come over for yourself before the action begins.
Outside.
Thrilling route lets you raid them when nobody is home.
Alex, you're about time.
You need to choose your team.
Make up your mind.
Complete registration. Teams
She
consist
thought
of
you were
yourself
going.
and fellow players
No.
divided into regional groups.
Only open it up a tiny bit.
Really? Brittany? Where's the ball? You're gonna punch yourself?
Here we go.
That's not a good idea, Mom.
Over 30,000 people.
Move
So
your
they're
leg. This ain't your son.
the pinning states against each other.
He's dressed up as
But everyone else is winning. Russia. That's not good. Why is Texas doing so bad? It's losing into Iowa.
What, you found Texas?
Yeah, it's people going against each other. It's losing in all, and it's losing against Turkey, Russia, Arizona, Slovenia, and Iowa.
Thank you for registering. Your special team flag will be put inside your waiting room soon. Do them proud.
There we go. Ooh. Hey, Uncle Death.
Don't give up, senpai.
Too bad you broke your VR thing. Cause then you can play Dropbox 24/7.
What? His glasses just changed.
Yeah, you can also
Not
talk
about
to
how
other
many times you
people.
die. It's about how many times you try.
Oh, well, okay.
Oh, damn. Rhyming feels good.
Move the joystick.
Huh? Oh, I really don't know anything. Sorry.
Oh, you playing that? Well, let me know if you have any questions. I'll give you some tips if I have the time.
I'll take what is mine one way or another.
Yeah, can't reach it. Nope. Can't reach it. Watch it. Can't reach it. Come here. Get over here. Oh, thank you. Attack!
I can't wait to see you have a perfect run next time.
Actually, I've only died once, and that was on purpose because I wanted to get back here. Also, look at this, Wyatt. I found something out with this thing. When you're in here,
different day.
look. What? Ooh, I knew this was something. Hernia. What's hernia?
You know, that might have been a costume, but she didn't have to do her hair that way.
Yeah.
She doesn't even have the right stuff in her hair. They're supposed to be pink feathers.
Even I know that. And glittering perfect. She's like glitter.
Okay, Panda.
And don't touch his nut, your bone. Nice throw, numbnut.
So that's the problem you keep talking about. What are you doing? I know!
Well, I just found a crossbow blueprint. A hat. I'm gonna make this crossbow. But I need a plank.
Come back anytime.
Actually, can't I just buy it?
So, you went to my little brother's store, huh? Come back anytime.
Oh, it didn't even matter.
Why did you put a gas mask on? Oh. Why don't they just put a kink in or something instead of running in there?